Today we're going to look at three types of absolute value inequalities. As you can see, we have a 3 multiplied by the absolute value that we'll have to get rid of because we don't want to decide if an absolute value is an and or an or statement until we isolate the absolute value. Here we have a negative that we'll need to get rid of, and here we just have to subtract to isolate the absolute value. So remember, before we determine whether a absolute value is going to give us an and or an or statement, we want to isolate that absolute value first. So for the first one over here on the left, I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And now I can determine if this is going to be an and or an or statement, and then I will split it. So this will be an or statement because it is greater than, so I'm going to have exactly the same thing just without the bars, and then here I'm going to keep change, change. I'll go ahead and solve both of those. Okay, and I get this as my answer, and I'm very careful to include my or because that is part of the answer. Now this should give me opposing rays, so less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Good. Now looking at number 2, I need to isolate my absolute value. Right now it looks like it's going to be an or statement, but I don't want to determine that until I isolate the absolute value. So I'll divide both sides by -2. I flip my sign because I divided by a negative. And now I determine, oh, good thing I waited because this is an and statement. So now I'm going to split it. I will keep change, change. I will solve. Don't forget your and to connect those. And this better give me a segment because it's an and statement. X is less than or equal to 1, so it's headed this way. X is greater than or equal to -7. Good. And finally, number 3. I want to isolate my absolute value before determining if it's an and or an or statement. So I'll subtract 6 from both sides. Now I will split it because my absolute value is isolated, and I'm going to determine that this is an and statement because it is less than. So I flip the sign and make that a negative. Here I keep everything the same. Now I'm going to go ahead and solve. And make sure in your answer that you have your connecting word. So x is greater than -8, and it's less than 0.